There's the. Well. That's a different countdown music, huh?
It was. I like it. I like it. I was like, ooh, smooth jazz. I like that.
It's not anything we did. It's something from, I guess, StreamYard, because we use StreamYard. So, yeah.
Thank you, StreamYard, for switching it up for us.
Yeah. Keeping it.
We're not complaining. We're just explaining.
Yeah. So, welcome to episode 137. We're going to talk about the dog days of winter. And I know that, like, we planned this. It was freezing cold when we planned this. So
Yes.
it's 75 degrees outside right now here.
I think it's 50 something. It has warmed up for us from the 30 some odd degree weather. It's 50 degrees. We had a high of 55 today. For the rest of the week, we are topping off at between 54 and 61 all week, with a low of 35 to 43. So that's our this, and then rain all the way through Tuesday, and then again starting on Saturday. It poured down rain multiple times, and then the wind kicked up really badly, and our lights flickered, and I lost internet for a little bit. So,
okay. Well, I mean, we come up with this idea because it's like that. You ever have those wintry days you don't want to go out, right? So you're like, nowadays we have Uber Eats and we have DoorDash that can bring food to us. But like, what are you going to do if you're like, I just got to stay in, but I want to hang out with my friends. All right. Maybe the weather's bad. So that's what the theme of tonight's show is kind of like that. It's dog days of winter. What do you cook? What do you eat? What do you drink?
Right.
And like for me, one of the things I love to do is I pull out my mini crock pot and come up with stuff. Like I like to do a crock pot stew or a crock pot chili, what I did tonight. But that's like something that slow simmers throughout the whole day.
And then your whole house just
smells
delicious.
like it. Yeah, all right. You throughout the day you can take a little dish of it and try it. You know what I mean? It's not harmful, all right, but that slow cooking makes the meat softer, But then you got to have a drink to go with it too. So,
right. So normally on a oh my goodness, a cold wintry day, I want something nice and warm and hot, like a special hot cocoa.
Oh yeah.
And for me, a special hot cocoa means Mexican hot chocolate with whiskey. That's normal. Did I do that today? No, I did not. But that's my go-to is hot cocoa. If I'm having coffee, I'm going to add some kind of cream liqueur, or I might add tequila to it or whiskey. Usually my go-to is whiskey when it comes to winter. I just feel like whiskey is one of those alcohols that you can have warm. You can have it cold, but you can also have it warm. You can have it by itself, and it just is going to be absolutely delicious. And this time around, made some chili, and there's so much history with chili. And then, of course,
I made some too, but I was going to talk about my chili. So I had it slow cooking all day. I'm actually throwing toppings that I put on my chili as I put fresh onions on it and some sour cream on the top. But yeah,
right.
You slow cook it all day. What else did you do with it?
Yeah. So my chili is, I've been making this chili for years now, 15 years or so, maybe more, but mine is very different. So chili is a classic food, and for most, because it is from the South, it's very specific. It's a stew, so you don't want it watery. So if you're having water, it's too watery. It's not chili. And it usually has peppers, ground beef for the most part, tomatoes. So that's usually the history of chili, is that it has chilies in it. My particular chili is a little different. Mine consists of short ribs. So I use short ribs. Sometimes I use the chunky short ribs, sometimes the skinny short ribs, but short ribs, bone and all. It has onions, and it has sometimes I'll throw in some ground beef, which I did this time, but I also will sometimes add mushrooms to it. I added this time I didn't do mushrooms, but I do in the past. I had a squash or a zucchini, so I threw that in there. Then I also used a red bell pepper, onions, and then I use cumin, salt, pepper, and oregano. And then of course, I in this case I think it was like 8 cups of beef broth, and then I use flour to thicken it up. And then at the end, I will add, after I've rinsed them off, the white, Great Northern white beans that gets thrown in there. So I do add beans to mine. Some of the recipes call for kidney beans, some call for tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, and chopped tomatoes. Um, I don't do that to mine, but that is one of the classics is a red chili. Uh, and it's because it goes back to New Mexico chilies, the history legend that it was being done way back when using that red chili peppers or like ancho chilies or guajillos or even cayenne peppers that were being used. There's been account of a Spaniard back in 1568 that tells the story of the Aztecs making this stewed sacrifices using chili peppers, tomatoes, and spices. Then, of course, there's another one where it was Sister Mary from Spain that she came up with the first one in the 17th century, and she was using stewed venison stewed with chili peppers, tomatoes, and onions. And then there was a journal in 1820 something where there was a kind of hash that they were using peppers and pieces of meat and all stewed together. And then, of course, you have the Dallas oil executive that was a chili connoisseur, and he found chili became popular in campfires amongst the cowboys during the cattle trails and the gold seekers, the 49ers, on their way to California. And so he's talking about chilies there. And then, of course, others are 1830s, 1840s, the lavanderas, the washwomen's that were making chili in Texas and Mexico, and they would cook, at night in the same tub they used to wash the laundry during the day. And they used also venison and goat with chilies. So there's a lot of history there. And then now, chili, depending on where you're getting it, it's gonna be different. San Antonio, they use they more in the 1930s is where they began doing chili a little bit different, and they call it a real Texas chili. The Midwest, like Chicago, theirs is a little variation in Cincinnati. And so it's a little bit more Mediterranean. So Hoosier chili, Oklahoma chili. So they call it a Boilermaker Texas chili. New Mexico, there usually is green because of hatch chilies. So that's where theirs is more of a green chili. So the main ones are traditional red, chile verde, which is your green, the home style chili. I guess I consider mine home style, and then a veggie chili, which means no meat, in case you didn't know what veggie was. But sometimes, depending on what part you're doing, it might be considered chile con carne or a traditional meat with chili or a chili. And of course, all the different beans that are thrown in there. Some of them you'll have black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, white beans. So mine, I would consider it home style. You'll have the toppings. So you can add avocado or onions. You definitely have to have onions. This happens to be a white cheddar and then sour cream. So you can add all of that. Oh, and in this chili, I also made it with the jalapeno to give it a little bit of a kick. And then I added some powdered chili or chili powder. So you can do so much with chili, but you got to have fun. And see, as you can see, mine has like the different colors in there. There's the red bell pepper on this side. There's some ground beef. There's the my regular meat that I used in there, and the Great Northern. So I'm going to add some cheese and some sour cream and a little bit of avocado because why not? I have it. and then of course a little bit of onions. So depending on where you're getting your chili, you will have different toppings to choose from. I think it needs a little bit of red. I don't have the red in there, but that is what my chili is gonna look like. So
No,
what
I
is
did
it?
get some sourdough bread today to put with it because I mean I like butter and bread to go with mine.
Yes.
I have a recipe that I kind of stick with and I tinkered with today.
Okay.
But my daughter made one the other day that
Okay.
was fabulous, and I didn't have the time to do that one.
Okay.
That one was done with some venison. I think hers was done with venison and I think some lamb.
Oh, okay.
I did mine with bison meat today.
Oh, okay.
So I browned my meat, and then I have all of my spices set aside. I have salt, I have pepper, I have garlic powder, cumin, chili powder. I can't even remember what I have into it. Paprika. I have all that set aside and then and measured out. All right, and then I chop up my. I did one green bell,
Okay.
2 jalapenos. Usually this recipe calls for a poblano, but I did a jalapenos instead.
Okay.
And then I usually use a can of either stewed tomatoes or diced tomatoes.
Okay.
And what else did I had into this? Some onions. All right, some garlic salt. All right, and then I put in beer. All right, I used some of that IPA I had. All right,
I almost put in some scotch because there was a chili recipe. I was just doing research and I found a chili recipe that had like a half a cup of whiskey in there. I thought that would be kind of fun, but I did not. I'm like, I have 18-year-old whiskey.
With the fact that I tried to make a half recipe because I didn't want to make a lot of it. But my beer, mine's kind of runnier than it normally would because of the beer. But if I store it and I bring it out, the meat's going to sop it up and it'll start to dry out in the refrigerator.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, and that's when the chili's really good. Is when it sits for a day or so, and then you pull it out and reheat it. So, and I've got to always have chopped onions on mine. Got some buttered bread to go with it.
Yeah, that's one thing. You need some bread to sop up all the flavors. So what is your cocktail of choice that you came up with?
I made up a rye old fashioned tonight.
Nice.
Just a 4-part. It's sugar, water. I used simple syrup and substituted the Angora bitters, whiskey, ice cube. All right, and cherry and orange to garnish it with, and that's it.
I will tell you.
Large cube.
Right, you got to have the large cube. So I did one time out at the coast, and no orange. It's like going, what do you mean I don't have an orange for my old fashioned? And then it's like, well, I have the doTERRA orange, and I was like, and doTERRA is so natural that we use the doTERRA orange citrus to put into my old fashioned, and it was amazing. So doTERRA, thank you very much. And folks, yes, you can actually, it's so natural that you can put it in a cocktail. Somebody did ask, oh, that looks beautiful. I need a picture of that. So please show me again so I can get a picture. And where's the whiskey that you used?
So of course, I'm going to use a rye. I use my Angel's Envy. I always have some Angel's Envy rye around.
There you go. Love it. Yes, Angel's Envy is a great one. Woodford Rye is a great one.
Woodford Rye is another good one. Yeah.
Four Roses, Bullet Rye.
I've not done Four Roses, but I have done a lot of places with Bullet because a lot of bars have that Bullet. So yeah.
Yes, that's an easy one, easy go-to. So what I did was that I was debating and I was doing some research, and the funny thing is that I came across as I'm reading, it says you can do a tea and scotch tasting, and they put it so mildly. They're like, oh yeah, all you need, I found that hilarious, that all you need is a variety of teas and multiple bottles of scotch. And I'm like, well, besides me and the liquor store, how many people have multiple bottles of scotch? And then I started to look at what I had. And I have 3 bottles of my Glenlivet 14. I have a Glenfiddich 14, another Glenfiddich 14. So just there. And then at home, I had a 14-year-old Baldini, a 15-year-old Glenmorangie, and 4 bottles of 18-year-old Scotch. So I said, I'm going to go with the Scotch. So one of my go-tos is usually a Glenlivet. Glenlivet 12 single malt Scotch is my go-to because it's easygoing. It has just great flavor. But I pulled out the 18 because I've had this for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, well, it's towards the end of it. So let me pull out the Glenlivet. Then I also had the Oban 18 that I actually opened. And I said, okay, because I was trying to figure out what am I going to be putting with this. Then, of course, the Glenfiddich 18. This one is absolutely amazing. Absolutely love it. And then I also have a newer one, Lac Le Monde. This one is a little bit smokier, smokier than the Oban. So Oban has a little bit of smokiness, peatiness, but it is not overpowering. This one, it's boom. And so this would be the last one. You can use this, as a finisher after dinner. But I figure, I do love my Scotch, so I did have that. I, of course, big cube with the big glass. And so that is an option. And then the other thing you can do, and we've mentioned this before, when you taste your whiskey, when you taste your Scotch, and especially Scotch, you taste it neat and it's good, then you add just a few drops of water. It does not take much. It's almost like if you had a little dropper, you can drop just a few, and I should have brought the dropper out. I didn't, but you can add just a few drops of water, and that will open up your Scotch, and the flavor of it will be just very different. It just like goes, ooh, taste all the flavors. And so I think I'll start with the Glenlivet 18 because I know that one is going to be the most mild. Then going towards the Glenfiddich 18, and then finishing it off with the Oban 18. So that'll be, so I'm not making a cocktail. It's going to be on the rock because it'll be just one rock that I let them sit out for a minute so that I can easily pull them out and stick them in my glass. Now, traditionally, when you are serving at home, if you're not measuring it, it is usually you cover the cube. That's like, I'm not going to do that because I have 3 Scotches here, so I'm not going to cover the cube, but that's normally what you would
I'd love to see you cover the cube 3 times. I really would.
Yeah. Then I need to be at home and take a nap. No, we don't need to do that. But I made it. I'm glad I pulled out about half hour ago. That's going to make it a lot easier for me to pull out these cubes. And I'm going to leave the last one in there. I don't think I need it. But one of the reasons I'm doing 3 different glasses is because sometimes I want to taste the one and then the other, and I want to be able to go back and compare it. So when you're doing a flight of anything, really, you want to taste what it is that you have. Man, and this Glenlivet just tastes absolutely delicious, which is the one I'm going to go back to. And even if I'm not going over the cube, it's still going, I'm going to put it in the order because I don't want to end up going, oops, which one's which? And then Mr. Oban here. And then the Lac Le Monde, I will debate if I'm going to try that one because that one is a little bit on the peatier side, a little bit more woodsy, more peaty, more, I want to say woodsy is the more of the word I want to use to describe that one. But I'll debate on that one. But I want to also taste each one with my chili to see which one I like the most. So we're going to start with first our Glenlivet 18. I mean, just the smell of it is absolutely, I like that. So when you look at Glenlivet, Glenlivet has been around quite a bit. 1824, that's what it was, is when the distillery was founded by George Smith, and that was in Glenlivet, Scotland. So I've said this before, all scotches are whiskeys, but not all whiskeys are scotches. So they have to be from Scotland in order to be called a scotch. And it was in Glenlivet was the first legal distillery in the small Sprayside region of northeast Scotland, where there's a lot of fine scotches that are produced in the area. But Glenlivet set the standard for single malt whiskey for the area. And even King George the Fourth arrived in Scotland in 1822, and he had a dram of the Glenlivet single malt whiskey, and then that extended the reputation. Charles Dickens also wrote to a friend that said that he called it the rare old Glenlivet. So it became popular. And the 18-year-old, it's very elegant. And it's complex, it's oaky, it's fruity. It's like a polite and friendly gentleman, with some good manners. 43% alcohol by volume, 86 proof. It is a little bit on the sweeter side, oaky, honey, peppers, cinnamon. And so the finish should be a little bit on the little caramely, a little honey, maybe even a little oaky, because there's always going to be some level of oak when it comes to Scotch. So we're starting with Glenlivet 18. One little taste to cleanse the palate, and the second one to actually taste your Scotch. And then a little bit of the chili. I like that warm after the cold. That is very yummy. I do like that. So that's the Glenlivet 18. You can use your bread to sop up some of the what you want to pull up from the chili, because you don't want anything to stay behind. You want to sop up all those flavors. Well, how does your chili taste with your old fashioned?
Really good with the old fashioned. Making my old fashioned taste cinnamony though, which is weird.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll bet you what it is I think I put too much cumin in
your chili?
In the chili.
Okay.
So then it offsets that. That's the best way I can figure why I'm getting a cinnamony aftertaste.
Okay. See if we can get a good picture here of these three beauties, because these are so much fun. Get the Glenlivet, the Glenfiddich, and the Oban. The three buddies. Oh, okay. So next is the Glenfiddich, 18-year-old. So you always having the comparisons, it makes it so much fun, because then you can say, hey, which one do I like, and why do I like this one over the other one? Mind you, I like all three. So Glenfiddich, it's Gaelic for the Valley of Deer. So that's what that means. And it was William Grant that had a dream to make the best dram in the valley. And so with the help of his family, him and his 7 sons and 2 daughters, they set out and they built the distillery by hand, stone by stone, and so opened up Glenfiddich back in 1886. And so he had this spirit to continue guiding him. One of the few single malt distilleries to maintain, to be entirely family owned in the world, and it's one of the most awarded single malt scotches. And so that's kind of nice. So the 18-year-old, it's more oaky, cinnamony. So because of what you're saying, there's a possibility that more of the cinnamon would come out with the Glenfiddich with your chili, and it's one of the flagships. So Glenlivet is my go-to, the 12, but the Glenfiddich 18, in my opinion, tastes even better than the Glenlivet 18. But it's that darker color. It's just has beautiful flavors in there. There's a certain sweetness, very luxurious. It's very warming. So that's all. Yeah, it's got a little bit more of a, I can feel it back here, a little bit more, but it is delicious. And we'll see how this one goes with the chili. So. Oh, wow. That one, I like that. The Glenfiddich absolutely just brought out the flavors of the chili. It got all those spices out. It really, because it's a little bit bolder than the Glenlivet. The Glenlivet is a little bit milder. Glenfiddich, it's a little bit more forward. It still has great flavor, but it really pulled out the spices in the chili, and it toned down the spiciness, because I did put a jalapeno in there. I did put chili powder. So there was a kick to the chili. This has toned it down. So I like that.
I didn't want to flesh out because I'm going to switch and do something just like you. I'm just going to do a little bit of my Buffalo Trace whiskey.
Yes, Buffalo Trace is great.
Not even a full shot, because I'm just going to do it for taste, along with what I'm eating in this chili.
Right.
No, I'm tasting my chili, what's left of it, with bread.
Okay. Yeah, you need a little bit of bread in there,
as opposed to just the chili by itself.
So Oban, they opened up back in 1794. It has not expanded, and it has not moved locations. It is just over an acre in the distillery is a little bit over an acre, and yet it is one of the smallest distilleries in Scotland. They close 3 weeks out of the year as their silent period. So they just like, nope, this is our silent period. We will not be working. But it is
that life just cut down for 3 weeks.
That's it. Yep. And they are 208 steps from the ocean. And the distillery predates the town, which I thought was kind of cool. And so they've been around over 200 years. They hit 200 in 2011. And Oban, it's the Gaelic word that means little bay, which is kind of cool. And they get the whiskey, the water is from the loch, which is 3 miles away. And they can do so much more than they do. They only turn 6 mashes per week, but they're going to follow the traditional process and limit the supply of Oban. That's why Oban is a little bit more expensive. And it takes 50 hours for the washbacks to generate the alcohol needed to make the whiskey. And they let it sit there for 110 hours instead of 50, because they want that traditional flavor to come through. And then they cool everything. They ferment it. They heat it in the copper pot wash to separate the water from the alcohol. So they're following their traditional process. So the Oban 18, it's very balanced. There's some, like I said, that peaty smokiness, spicy wood, and it just has that little bit more of a kick. It's 43% alcohol by volume, smoky, sea salt, ripe fruit. That is what they're all about, is just getting that traditional flavor in there. So, Oban.
With the 200 years, I'm just curious how many generations from the originals are still working there. Because you realize that somebody could have stayed there 90 some odd years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's very real that like there could be almost someone's 3rd, maybe 4th generation there.
So the McLean family, they have 3 generations of men that have been working at the Oban distillery.
Oh.
So there you have it, at least 3 generations. And they have a small team. These distilleries do not have a ton of staff. Some of them only have 7, some of them have 12. I mean, they have that smaller staff, but they're running everything, and they love what they do.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's something to go and something like that. It's you always wonder how many generations work there at the same time,
Right.
Because something that old. It reminds me of that a line from the movie The Social Network, where they go into the office of the dean, and they come out and break the doorknob, and basically they're talking about the old building, and the lady goes, "This building is 100 and some years older than the country it's in."
Right.
All right, and the kid comes out and breaks the doorknob and throws the doorknob in the desk. Whoops! I broke a doorknob, a 285-year-old doorknob. Anyway. When we think of generations, then the other thing is I'm wondering is was Willie Nelson there too? No.
But
No, Willie Nelson's not even 100 years old, but we all joke about the country we're leaving. We're joking about the drinking traditions we're leaving for Willie Nelson and Keith Richards when we all pass.
the Oban here also brings out it's got a little bit of a kick.
Yeah.
I really like it. It's that smokiness. So I still have a couple of bites of chili here. I think I might try that Loch Lomond. So I have one more cube left. I'm going to put that in.
There was one more thing that I did get and did bring here for today. And it's like, when you talk about dog days of winter and things you're going to have at home, you got to have a dessert, right? You just got to have desserts that you got to want to eat. I mean, I always have some sort of ice cream treat in my freezer. For the most part, there's things I have like, French fries that I can always do, hash browns I can always do. But this week there was a special, so we got them. We have them here. We have this cheesecake.
That's beautiful.
This is a raspberry white chocolate cheesecake, and I think it's part of like there was 6 or so different in the pack. To me, it's like one of those desserts you want to keep in your refrigerator is cheesecake. It's almost like cheesecake and a good bottle of champagne should always be chilling in your refrigerator.
Right. I do have champagne in my fridge, and I do have a bottle of vodka in the freezer, and then of course all my scotches in the bar. But
which Gwen just texted me that she's coming home, and I meant to tell her I got her some vodka.
Cheesecake. Oh, nice.
I bought her some vodka today.
So the Loch Lomond, this one is 46% alcohol by volume. They do use oak barrels. It's full-bodied, absolutely. And even though it's supposed to be fruity characteristics and a little bit of warmth, there's a lot of depth in there. So this one is what they consider their signature representation of their Scotch. Rich toffee, wood smoke finish, absolutely. They use 3 types of American oak casks. They use a non-chill filter to keep the natural natural flavor that they intended. And Michael Henry is the master blender that he personally is looking at the assurance of quality. So he, in his notes, when he was doing the video, he talked about using straight neck stills and the swan neck stills, taste of baked apple, rich toffee, and wood smoke. I definitely taste that wood smoke. There is a certain level of sweetness in there, and yeah, I can hang with the toffee, but definitely that wood smoke. So there are some good flavors in there. A mature oak, a cedar, even the smell of cedar in there, but tobacco finish, so that peatiness that's in there is the way that it ends. And it did taste good with the chili. It did. In my opinion, it overpowered the chili just a little bit. So this is a great way to end your meal if you want just something to feel completely relaxed. It's good.
I don't know. The cheesecake and this old fashioned are really making me feel relaxed. I'm just saying. I have got the world's best old fashioned to go with this cheesecake. I and this is a simple old fashioned. Again, I mean, this is just
Right.
the simple one. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. It was like butter upon heaven, upon cream, upon it just melted. All right. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, back to what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm over here.
Hey, dessert can sometimes have us just forget about what we're talking about. Forget about it. I do have chocolate around here, but I don't know that I would. You could. A good dark chocolate would hold up to the.
I don't know if I want a dark chocolate with this.
No, not with your.
No. What I've had tonight. Dark chocolate's the furthest thing from my mind because of what I've had. Now, I'll put some chocolate in my chili. I didn't this today.
Oh, okay.
All right. I put chocolate, like real dark chocolate in my thing, but I'm looking today going, the buttery and the creaminess of this cheesecake is probably the best match for this old fashioned.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It's the best I've had in a while. It matches it better than the chili does.
No, I think that sweetness that complements each other. I think that's what it is. You don't want that clash. And that's why for a dark chocolate with the Lac Lemande, I think goes well because the peatiness, that woodsy, that cedar, all of those flavors, I think would complement like a dark chocolate, sea salt dark chocolate. I think would go very well together because the dark chocolate has that slight bitterness, if you will, and I think it would hold up well. I would not pair a milk chocolate with any of these at all. A milk chocolate is not a good, you got that sweetness of the milk chocolate would not go well with any of these scotches, in my opinion. But a salted caramel. That would be very yummy, I think, in my opinion. And I don't think I have any. I think I already ate my salted caramel chocolate. Let me see what I have left in my stash over here. Oh, I have a dark. I do have a dark one.
I have a visitor keep knocking on my door out here.
Somebody wants your attention. So I do have the lint. So we're going to see if the lint and the Lac Lemande, let me just put a little splash, just a bit of a splash. If that goes well together, we will see.
I think, wait a minute, cheesecake, because it has white chocolate drizzled across it, I'll bet you that's what's making this become a buttery cream dessert with its old fashioned.
Oh, wow. That goes very well together. I like it.
No, which scotch?
The Lac Lemande, the last one.
Yeah. I got to get and try some of that. So ladies and gentlemen, she showed me the bottle before we went live, and I'm like, I got to get me some of that.
Right.
Which is the problem we have is sometimes we have stuff that we have that in this case here, it's a scotch. We'll probably be able to get it, but we have a lot of bourbons and vodkas that only she can get or only I can get, and that's a problem we have all too often. But when it comes to a scotch, it's probably going to be a nationwide distribution. I just have to find the right store in my area to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a couple of people that we hadn't done their shout out. I'm
going to put some up here again. All right. So Robert here. Hey, buddy, thanks for joining in. Your friend Mark coming in again. So
hey there.
Those are the two that I can see in the chat I have, unless you have someone coming over on your specific
channel
Facebook page, and I can't see them in there.
Yeah, no,
they should pop in here, but sometimes that fails a little. Anyway,
right. And I know there's a couple of others that are watching live because they told me they were going to be on, but they haven't commented. So if you're out there, you're okay.
Hey, if you're watching our show live, please leave a comment and talk about what we're talking about that night. We want to find out what your recipes are. We are not, by any means, we are not the god and goddess of whatever liquors we're talking about. Most of the time, we're the two amateurs trying to figure out the liquor we're talking about that night.
What do we like? What do we not like?
Yeah, because we don't know every week's about finding out what we like.
Yeah.
All right. We have some go-tos, but for the most part, we're trying something different.
Mm-hmm. Or we're trying it with something like the Glenlivet and the Glenfiddich and the Oban. I've tried them before. I just hadn't tried them with chili before, so it's a new experience. How is this going to taste with the chili? So I really like that the Lac Lemond with the chocolate. I think the Oban would probably also hold up with the chocolate. I don't know that the Glenlivet and the Glenfiddich would hold up because they're not as peaty. So I think that they would. Hey there! Oh, look, you're spot on. Yep.
Oh, that.
Yep.
Some sort of rye is at least best. Yes, Jamie, rye. I love ryes, but yes, I've had a couple of old fashions that were really. I've done it with a straight wheat whiskey. I have a straight wheat whiskey from Kansas that I've done an old fashioned with that I really like. All right, but I have not done with a lot of other wheat whiskeys. Just that one wheat whiskey out of Kansas that I have. All right, I get the feeling I'm going to get a visitor here, so be prepared. He's coming in. He's coming to attack.
So the Oban definitely goes well. The Lac Lemond actually a little bit better with that dark chocolate.
He is not going to have a drink, ladies and gentlemen. He's just saying hi. He wanted to say hi to you all. Wave. Say hi. Hi. Bye-bye. Say hi. Wave to everybody. Come on. Wave.
He's I just want to smile and look cute.
Bye-bye. 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 Okay.
We will have, yes. So we have a new student that's going to learn a little bit more about scotches, and hopefully some of the information brought to you today, courtesy of Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, Oban, has been very useful. But yeah, it's you got to enjoy the ride. Try the different scotches, see what you like. And as we mentioned before, if you can taste something at a bar, that is the best way to try different things. That's the best way to experience. Don't feel like you have to spend with the very expensive scotches. You can start with the Glenlivet 12, single malt scotch, at least 12-year-old. Start there. Work your way up to the 14, the 15, the 18. I want to get to the 25-year-old, and if I can ever get my hands on a 50-year-old Macallan, I might splurge on that. That is a 007 thing, so that would be my splurge, my indulgence. Although right now my 18-year-olds are my indulgence. I was asked that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to taste things, go to a bar and get an individual drink. We decided to do it the more expensive way, all right, to taste it on air and having to buy fresh liquor every week. Yeah.
We're doing the work for you, y'all. Although my scotches, I think the Glenlivet, I've had for over a year. My 18-year-olds will last me over a year. I have 3 bottles of Glenlivet 14 just because I do. I'll hoard my scotch because the tariffs have increased the cost of them. So when I get them, they're $5 off. I'm like, I'm taking it. And then I hide it in my drawer and I'll have it later. So the Oban, again, I just opened the Oban yesterday. So, and the Lac Lemond, I opened it, I think a week ago just to taste it. I'm like, I want to know what this tastes like. And that's why I knew that one would be the peatiest, the oakiest, the one that would have to be last. Because I did not want to ruin the flavor of my chili. I didn't want it to overpower my smoother scotches. So it all depends on what you want. Ardbeg is one that is so peaty, it's almost like you're drinking a cigar. And frankly, I don't want to drink a cigar. I didn't know. It's a little much.
That brings up the attention that the one thing we haven't done on here yet is, and Gwen got me one last year, I think for Father's Day, the smoke kits to be able to smoke an old fashioned or smoke.
That is very different. Oh, a
Yeah.
smoked
No,
oak
I've had
apple.
them. No, I've had them at restaurants, but I have the kit here. I just have never opened it up and used it.
That is one kit that I absolutely want. It is, yeah, because it just gives it, when you are smoking your cocktail, it has such a different flavor that it just elevates it. It just gives it a different flavor. I know that I've had some that are just yum. So fun stuff. You got to play with that. So just don't burn anything.
That was my first thought. I was worried about it, but I haven't opened it up because we got it. I got it as a Father's Day gift last year, which that's been 6 months. I just have never tried it yet.
And does it come with was it just a kit? Did it actually come with the smoked chips in there?
I think I have a bunch of different smoke chips.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this one has the torch or not. I forget. But anyway, I got to go dig it all out because it's probably hidden on the back of the shelf.
Yeah,
Let's
you got to experiment with that. Yeah, experiment with it because the different.
So here's the chip.
Yes, they'll have different flavors, and so it can make it, very fun. Yeah.
So I mean, I've got I don't know where I have all the stuff to make it work, but yeah. And I think mine's a cap that goes over and smokes.
Yeah.
All right. I do know some that they have it where you put it on a plate and you put a bubble over. You smoke it and put a bubble over it. Oh.
Yeah.
And
so there's different types. Whatever works best for you, whatever makes it easier. You got to try different things, see which one works. If it doesn't work, return it and exchange it for something else.
I just go to a restaurant.
There you go. Then there's that. And there's that too. Yeah. So try different things. Hopefully we gave you some ideas on whiskeys, on old fashions, on scotches of what you might like, what you might want to try, what you might want to start with that might please your palate. It all depends on what your palate likes and what you're willing to experiment with, and try something new. Makes it fun.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all right. This show every week is brought to you by Gladys and I. Our businesses pay the bills around here. All right. We do have something that we always offer every week. We are trying to build a club of people who like drinking or like doing tasting with us, things like that, experimenting. You can go to likethewayyoudrink.com. It's called our Insiders Club. I'm trying to find the banner for it right now.
I was wondering because you're always spot on.
There we go. So yeah, it's likethewayyoudrink.com. You must be 21 to join. All right, where you can experience drinks and stuff with us. We do different classes on different days and weeks. Where you basically can get on camera with us. And we do it on Zoom, so you can do it from anywhere in the world. All right. Go to likethewayyoudrink.com and actually, and I'm trying to think. I just set something up because that's on my website, and I just got to go and make sure it's set it up. And when I say anywhere in the world, because I just started blocking certain countries from coming to the website.
So mainly, most of the world.
So most of the world. If you can't get to my website or you can't get to likethewayyoudrink.com, message us through our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, all right, to connect with us, and we'll get you into the Insiders Club. But likethewayyoudrink.com is our website, and the Insiders Club is the exact area that we have to experience exactly what Gladys and I do every week with you, all right, on a more group basis.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So, any shout outs today from you?
Well, I am wearing my, oh my goodness, I always forget, but it's my taco proof Las Jefas Chingona lipstick. I wanted to make sure that it would sustain or be able to not come off as I'm having chili. And apparently it does, if it's taco proof, it should be chili proof. So thank you for the Jefas for such great lipstick.
Yeah, sooner or later we'll get them on as a sponsor.
Just keep working on them.
Just keep working on them.
Yeah, they're in Northern California. I'll go visit.
Other people we want as a sponsor, just saying, is we want Buffalo Trace, Angels Envy. Anyway. Tito's. We want them to sponsor our show. Yeah.
Oh, and we'll get Maker's Mark. I am an ambassador for Maker's Mark, so give them time. They'll get there.
Yeah. So, but then other than that, it's Gladys and I's businesses who pay for the bills around here. So each week we give a small commercial about our businesses. We start off always with Gladys, as she is the female in the group.
Thank you, Tim. Gladys Boutwell, Insurance by Design. I help employers become employer of choice through employee benefits because there are 101 different ways that you can attract and retain quality staff through employee benefits. Because when your employees know that you care for them, guess what? They're going to stick around, take care of your clients, which means increased revenue, less expense, and less churn. Insurance Design Pros, if you want the white paper affiliated with this, on the upper left-hand corner, you will see where you can download it. But if you want to have that conversation, that one-to-one to find out, hey, what can I do right now? That's going to be dirt cheap for me to start. Go to enrollnoworegon.com, get on my calendar. We'll have the conversation and see what is going to work for you and your staff. That's enrollnoworegon.com. And this is my co-host.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to Enroll Now Oregon. I was in the middle of trying to set something else up, so I forgot. Anyway.
Okay.
But anyway, Roll Now Oregon, get that one. So, guys, I'm going to do something a little bit different this week. Usually, I talk about my websites, Simple Easy Websites, which is my company, Tim Gillette Media. We do websites and online training in the online marketing space. But I am bringing back my Tim Gillette Show podcast. As you see the new logo in the background for my podcast, the Tim Gillette Show podcast, where I interview the real influencers, not the people who say they have 1 million followers on TikTok. No, I'm talking real influential people. I interview them. All right. And I'm looking for guests for that show. You want to find out about all of my podcasts, go to timgillette.com/podcast. And the reason I'm doing that is there's a button there from the Tim Gillette Show that you can actually apply to be on the show. All right. If you are someone who has influenced your world, your neighborhood, your industry, all right, your community, your networking group, whatever it is, I want to interview you and talk about it. The only requirements we have are, number one, you cannot be doing anything negative on social media. We don't put negative people on our podcast. So take and cut your politics out. We don't do that. Number two, you got to have a website. Sorry, I'm a website guy. You got to have a website. But if you don't have a website, I know somebody who can put one up for you real quick. Anyway, go check out my podcast, timgillette.com/podcast. I think timgillette.com/podcast interview will get you as to where you can apply to be on my podcast. That's all I got for today.
Yeah. And one way to know, are you an influential person? Ask yourself, do people come up to you and say, I know you, and you don't know them? Guess what? You've influenced them in one way or another in your community.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So, yeah. And someone was asking me about that. Like, oh, you interview the Tony Robbins. I'm like, no, not really. Yeah. Tony Robbins is an influencer. All right. But he influences from the masses. Do you know that the average person has no idea how many people they influence? You know, you take Gladys here. Gladys is not like a TikTok or social media influencer. But if you go into the town of Wilsonville, Oregon, everybody knows Gladys because she's influenced her community. And that's the type of people I want to interview. Yeah.
I'm actually now, if you look at me up on Google, it shows me as a public figure. I thought that was cute.
Yeah. And it's because you've made an influence and an impact in a community. That's why. Yeah. And those are the people I interview. Anyway, I got my visitor coming back to say goodnight.
All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week with another exciting episode of Like the Way You Drink. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.